welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the story. This was written by a real human. So please leave a like if you enjoy it to help the channel and subscribe for future content. It's free. Links to the story and Patreon will be in the description. Please go and support the author. Any support is always appreciated. If a human narrator would like to narrate my stories, please contact me. I write these in my spare time between work and my children and just don't have the time or quiet space to narrate them myself. I hope you can understand. Thanks for your time, and again I hope you enjoy the story. And for the love of everything YouTube, this is literature, so please leave my channel alone. Let's get into it, folks. Report. Barbara said as they watched the destructive wave expand outwards from the point of impact on the planet. They had been surprised at how close the Viril moonship had appeared to Mars Station. Without any warning, a large dropship had detached as well as several other ships. Intel had said nothing about that capability. 3 Viril tin cans to port. Came the reply from CMC Dillon almost instantly. Targets acquired. Fire at will. She ordered as her ship's tubes belched their full port broadside. 210 Cerberus ship-to-ship missiles streaked towards the Viril destroyers. As close as they were, their point defense systems only managed to pick off a dozen between the 3 of them. Enemy cruiser firing from above our elliptical. Yelled Ensign Ricks as missile tracking started pinpointing hostile bogies and sinking them through the AI with the point defense grazers to remove the threat. Roll to starboard helm. Fire as soon as we have a lock on it. She heard herself say, her voice way calmer than she felt. She had to maintain composure no matter what she kept telling herself. Warning klaxons wailed as her suit's helmet sealed automatically. Her ship bucked as a pressure wave expanded from what was once an orbital fortress stationed above Mars' North Pole. Engineering, tell me something good. That's a lot of fucking birds heading for us. We just got the secondary shield battery back on port cell 7F. Engines are at 90% and holding. CME Erica reported. Boosting power output to starboard grazers. Her hands flew across the data screen as she worked. How bad does the Queen's resolve look? Barbara asked. Her cores hadn't gone critical yet as far as she could tell, but Barbara couldn't see very many life pods. In fact, the computer was flooded with tagged Viril life pods but very few US Alliance pods so far. And most of those were from the civilian ships and fighter support from the reservists on the planet and critically damaged orbital infrastructure. Most of those from the initial surprise the damn Viril managed to pull off. Somehow they had been a full standard day earlier than Navy intel had expected. Exo Hadara replied. She's been crippled. Direct hits to their primary power core. Looks like they ejected the damaged core and then... Everyone brace. She yelled, slamming her tether into place. The ship bucked and groaned as they survived another close explosion. Dillon called out, that was one of their cores. They hit it themselves. 2 enemy destroyers are dead in space. The 3rd destroyer has taken several hits, and its captain has managed to position them to be able to get a volley off as we pass. Firing grazers. Barbara watched as the Zedfang M3 grazers slagged the remaining tin cans shield generators and scored several deep hits in its aft section. However, its volley of missiles it managed to get off on the refuge scored 4 hits, damaging a shield node. The Mammoth's locator beacon suddenly flared red and then yellow flashing on the TAC display. Its beacon had it physically merging with a Viril battleship, but TAC showed somehow it was still operational and burning hard for the moonship. The cruiser they had been trying to target had its shields flare as it was hit by the pressure wave itself. Then it imploded suddenly as a miniature black hole appeared. One of the orbital fortresses managed to score a direct hit on its core. The moonship had immediately started towards Earth as it launched the large landing ship and sent volley after volley of plasma at nearby orbital targets. They were harder to defend against, and she dreaded hearing about the casualties. It used its missiles to devastate the infrastructure and orbital fortresses as well as targeting anything that moved. Her crew had been busy with the point defense grazers and looked to be doing better than the actual Navy. And the fucking moonship had at least 2 more of those large dropships still attached to it. What's that cruiser doing, TAC? Barbara asked as she watched another broadside streak into the Leviathan from yet another cruiser. Her smile turned predatory as she watched the massive supercarrier shrug off the missile and plasma strikes. Small fighter bombers continued to pour out of its grav launchers. Anyone who said the small, compact frames were obsolete in combat only had to look at the remains of 4 enemy destroyers and 2 cruisers. They swarmed around the Leviathan like a bunch of pissed-off hornets around their nest. Another fort exploded as the moon ship focused fire on it. She could see the USS Thermidor valiantly slugging it out with 4 destroyers just on the other side of the station. They hadn't even made it out of the docking slip yet when they had been hit. The majority of her crew had already been on board for their initial engine testing. They had managed to get their shields spooled up in time in their engines. But the station was a disaster. A lot of people had died with those initial strikes. The Phoenix had been utterly mangled and parts of it were fused with the station itself. The New York and Neptune were still in their repair slips. Several civilian vessels were now scrap as their section of slips was just as mangled and fused as the section with the Phoenix. The Refuge took several more hits and she heard, "We're losing atmosphere on decks 4 and 11. Said Dylan. "First V-whips ready? Sometimes it's better to do and ask for forgiveness after," Barbara said solemnly. "Fire as soon as we have confirmation lock on that moon ship's engines." She sent a silent prayer for Private Vuel's creations to work as intended. If the nanites weren't coded right, they could very well create a catastrophe right over Mars. Helm, get us in range. If they could stop it here and now, Earth and Luna might not get hit. The damn Viril had surprised them by attaching ships to the hull of the monstrosity. Their early warning buoys had only detected one hostile enemy ship. There had been dozens of various Viril ship types that had started disconnecting and firing on anything moving as soon as the moonship had torn through into the Sol system. She watched as the Crescent unleashed a barrage of missiles at a Viril battleship that belched its own back at the Crescent. There were so many missiles in the space between the two battleships that the TAC display looked like a solid red bar. She grimaced as the Refuge was hit several more times. Shields holding. They're at 65%. Tubes are compromised on deck 3C. Bulkheads holding in aft fire control. They took a direct hit. Secondaries already engaging. Came CME Erica, her voice clear over the sounds of system warnings and other voices relaying information between stations. She felt the inertial dampeners engage as the helm rolled and banked, trying to weave through the larger pieces of debris that already filled the space around her home planet. They were already falling into the planet's atmosphere, turning into streaking red fireballs as they descended. Admiral Zhang's orders were very clear. Stop the moonship at all costs. It was the larger threat. Barbara watched as a mass of darts fired from the Mammoth blinked through the moonship's shields and slammed home. The strike was successful in crippling an enemy shield generator but ultimately only caused minimal damage to the enormous ship. But that wasn't the only barrage slamming into the enemy behemoth. Everything was targeting that damn ship. She winced as the Thermidor's beacon flared. Two of the Viril destroyers it had been slugging it out with turned red as their life pods started ejecting. One of them floated silently in space. A hole nearly a third of its total size tore through its midsection. The fourth tried to alter its heading and ram into the Thermidor but was met with several missiles from the remaining orbital platform that somehow had survived. She watched the TAC display as the range slowly dropped between the Refuge and the Viril moon ship. Just a little closer. She silently urged her ship onwards. Debris made it through their shields and she heard the damage report as the hull took some damage. At their current sublight speeds, their shields could only do so much. If they couldn't stop the enemy soon, Luna and its rings would be in range of those drop ships. All of her focus was on Dylan and the TAC display as they ever so slowly gained on their target. The Mammoth continued to burn hard and fire darts, attempting to stay within range as the Viril battleship fused with it caused it to lose speed, the extra mass inevitably slowing even the Dreadnought's powerful engines even though they were obviously redlined. She looked at the distance readout. The moon ship was close to being within the range of their new missiles, and she silently urged her ship onwards. It seemed like a lifetime to her. Targets acquired. We can only reach 3 of its engines at the moment, she heard Dylan say. His voice was flat and professional. Fire. As soon as we reload, try to target any more that might be within range, she said. Surprisingly, her voice was calm, not a hint of emotion either way. She had to stay in control. Comms burbled and crackled over everyone's murmuring, and she heard Admiral Zhang's voice as he rallied their forces onwards, carrying through her helmet speaker. It was only moments, and she watched as another volley of darts appeared from the Mammoth. It was reading fairly close to the Refuge, and as she looked out the view screen on her console, she could see its foresection was buried several decks into an enemy battleship's midsection, turning it into a sort of T shape. The enemy battleship seemed to be mostly dead, with only faint power readings. A flash came from behind her Refuge, and as she panned her view aft of her ship, she could see a sleek, unknown enemy ship type tumbling uncontrollably as a piece of an orbital fortress exploded too close for its shields to compensate. She watched as her aft-facing Zedfang M3 grazers gouged deep furrows into its hull plating as it streaked past behind them and flashed again as its core went critical. Second volley away. Last V-whips are being loaded now. First volley detonating in 3, 2, 1. Dylan said. She could see the view screen behind him suddenly leap closer to the first V-whip targets as a cloud seemed to bubble out of the moonship's exterior hull in 3 different locations. The mass expanded exponentially as the second volley slammed into more targets. Third volley away. Reloading with Cerberus missiles. The second volley seemed to have an even greater effect than the first, as the moonship's sublight speed dropped exponentially on the TAC display. A massive wave of missiles suddenly belched out of the gargantuan ship as warning klaxons continued to wail, the TAC display showing hundreds of birds targeting her ship. "Brace!" yelled Erica over the wailing klaxons. Grazers and point defense systems managed to take out roughly a third of those incoming missiles. Unfortunately, that still left a lot of enemy birds to slam into the refugees' shields, and Barbara winced as her ship let out a very unsettling groan. Electrical circuits sparked everywhere as the shield generators overloaded and the ship bucked violently multiple times. Her grav boots kept her firmly attached to the deck. She watched as Erica was suddenly flung sideways though, letting out a cry as electricity arced into her. Thankfully her tether was secured, and as she reached its end, she groaned from impacting the floor. Barbara swore she felt something screech past her head as an explosion ripped a portion of the bulkhead away, and she could see through several decks. This was bad. Damage reports coming in. I don't know how the fuck we're still here. Dylan yelled as she saw Ensign Rix trying to help Erica back to her station. Hadara had already untethered herself and literally leapt to another console. Slamming her tether's hook onto the bar and after only a moment, started reporting. Shields down. I repeat, all shield nodes are fried. Only 2-point defense clusters remain operational, and engineering is reporting a massive cooling leak. Captain, they have to shut down the core to fix it. Barbara looked at the TAC display and at her own readouts. They had managed to slow the moonship down quite a bit. But even as her third volley of V-whips slammed into their targets, she heard Dylan call out, "Firing Serbs. Half our tubes are compromised." She watched as another wave of missiles streaked out of the moonship. This wave was targeting both the refuge and the mammoth she could see, not that it would matter without shields. Her ship wasn't going to survive. The TAC display showed them getting closer, but something else was also happening. Green dots indicating fighter craft from the Leviathan burning hard to intercept the incoming birds. Very well. If we survive this, tell them to hurry, CMC Dylan. We won't have much time. Get someone on those shield generators and point defense clusters while they're at it. We have to stop them before they reach Earth. She heard herself say, her voice sounded calm and she couldn't hear any emotion in it. It was almost cold. We can't fail. Her helmet speaker crackled, "Captain Barbara, please respond. This is CMC Mary of the Leviathan. I repeat, please respond." "Captain Barbara here, what is it?" She heard herself respond. Was that really her voice? "Captain, we have a fighter screen moving to intercept. Admiral Zhang requests you to fall back and get your people out of their range. Whatever you did dropped its speed enough. We can catch it." CMC Mary replied. "Roger that," said Barbara as she gritted her teeth. By some miracle, they made it through the next volley of enemy birds, but several of the fighter screen didn't make it. Something inside her noted their sacrifices and filed it away to process later, along with the ever-increasing list of the refuge's own casualties. "Engines dead," Hadara reported. "Shield nodes 3 and 7 are being repaired. 4 and 5 are fused to the plating. Grazers C15 through D8 should be coming back online as soon as they can get the fried circuit rerouted. Engineering is already starting the coolant repairs." Her XO said, the Orion's tone as cold as her own. "They don't think any of the port grazers can be repaired without at least a few days to trace down all the overloaded circuits." She nodded her head in acknowledgement and said, "Load the darts." She watched Dylan's head snap up. She looked back at the flickering TAC display. "Load all available tubes with darts, and target the center of that ship before it gets out of range. Keep firing until it's out of range or we're out of darts. Hold the Cerberus missiles back. We're probably going to need them." She looked at the 10 or so remaining enemy ships near enough to be of consequence to the refuge and the friendly ships engaging them. "Understood, Captain," Dylan replied as a medical team rushed to Erica's side. She was fully conscious but had severe electrical burns on both hands. Her suit's self-sealing mechanism had worked even with the severe electrical damage. They led her out of the doors as 3 engineers rushed in, scanning the walls and shaking their helmeted heads at the missing section of bulkhead. They wasted no time as they began replacing burnt-out circuits and other damaged components with as much haste as possible. She kept glancing at the TAC display as the mammoth became the target of the moon ship's wrath. She could tell they were hurting it. But the damn thing was so massive that even the large visible gapping holes the V-whips had caused only seemed to be superficial at best. The first darts her ship launched popped up on the TAC display, blinking closer and closer to the moon ship. Soon another volley joined them. "Ma'am, engineering is reporting the coolant repairs are nearly complete," Hadara reported. Shield Node 3 is currently cycling through the initial spool-up phase. Shield Node 7 is almost ready to begin the initiation sequence. Shield Node 1 is currently being replaced. She tapped the display several times and continued, "Grazers C15 through D8 are reading as operational. Medical is reporting 107 injured, 34 deceased, 17 unaccounted for, and still more coming in." Her chest tightened as her XO reported the numbers. That was half the refugee's personnel. She silently cursed whatever cruel god continued to take her people. It had taken her years of therapy to finally beat the anguish she had felt into submission and move past it after the Eladrin shield wall mission at Nabal. She still woke up soaked in sweat sometimes from the all-too-vivid nightmares. She looked back at the TAC display. It no longer flickered as the engineers worked their miracles on whatever they could. She knew the same thing was playing out all over her ship. Another wave of darts raced away. She could see the first volley disappear as they blinked inside the massive ship before detonating. It didn't seem to really affect its current speed or structural integrity in any way. It was getting absolutely hammered by the Leviathan's fighter bombers, and the mammoth was so close to it that the two icons nearly lay on top of each other. She could see there were only 3 enemy ships still operational other than the moon ship, and they were trying to escape the Hornet and the Thermidor. Both ships showed significant damage on the TAC display but continued to throw everything they had at the smaller Viril ships, along with the remaining orbital forts. How much longer? She grimaced as her ship bucked from another close-pressure wave. Thankfully it was far enough away it didn't overwhelm what systems they had unshielded. She watched her second wave of darts disappear inside the target icon as the 2 large drop ships detached suddenly from the moon ship, and their engines must have been redlined as soon as they were free from the larger ship, their velocity and trajectory taking them towards Luna and Earth. "Engines respooling now, Captain," announced Hadara. She looked up through the gash in the bulkhead as she watched the shield pop into existence. It shimmered a light green as minor debris and dust struck it. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Target those damn drop ships. We have to stop them." She heard that ice-cold voice again. And she could see Hadara look at her almost as if searching for something. Whatever it was, she visibly shivered as she acknowledged the order. "Redline M. Hold nothing back. Dylan, make sure those Cerberus ship-to-ship missiles are ready when we get within range. Target their engines if possible. Secondary strikes target their cores." The man actually snapped a salute, a look of worry briefly flashing through his helmet visor. She could see at least 2 fighter bomber wings were hard on the enemy dropship's heels. Flashes of light flickered off their dark gray, almost black hulls as the fighters hit them again and again. Something bright flashed and the TAC display went dark for a moment. The brightness almost burned as it radiated through the gash in the bulkhead. Barbara instinctively shielded her eyes. She was violently thrown out of her seat, and she felt the tether snap tight as she quickly reached its end. Then she slammed into the floor as everything went dark. Only for a moment though, as their emergency power kicked on. She could see Hadara crawling towards her, using dead consoles to propel herself forward. She was saying something but she couldn't hear her through the suit speaker. Actually, she couldn't hear anything but her heartbeat as she tried to blink the spots out of her vision. All she could think of was, what in the hell was that? Thanks for listening. Please leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed the story. If you feel generous and want to support the author's work, go visit the Patreon link in the description. Any support is welcome. Until next time.